Hello again people, ELAVI Truth TV again. Today I'm going to be analysing the structural racism and exclusion that I faced at Uclan, the systematic racism. Now I have to take you a little bit back. A video I produced called Dr. Ridley, the Psychology of a Racist, went into the fact that Dr. Ridley from Uclan had claimed to the police that I had sent two individuals in order to do the mother of my children harm. Mother of my children studies at Uclan. Since then, people from Uclan University have been making it their business to try and have me excluded from certain groups that I'm involved in. And their contention with me is that they believe that I've called Dr. Ridley a racist. He's calling her a racist, I said. She's not a racist. I've seen her go to lunch with Tamika, and she's watched Bob Marley DVDs, and she listen. I stated that her actions, because of her privilege, was able to keep me in prison for close to 6 months on the basis of her allegations. If she's believing that this didn't happen, then she's clearly a liar. It's factual because I questioned her when I represented myself in the Crown Court in Liverpool, and I proved her statement to be false. In fact, she saw a black individual come into her seminar and believed, based on his colour of his skin, that he was attached to me and that he was going to do harm to the mother of my children. Now I won't go into certain documents that the mother of my children in Uclan has used lately to further exclude me from Uclan, and I'll go and I'll say exactly how I've been excluded from Uclan University. In this document, the mother of my children states that I've been seen on the campus, and on occasions Dr. Ridley had seen me on the campus, a person I've never met apart from questioning her in a Crown Court. She doesn't know me or my background apart from stuff that she's concocted herself. It also states that other staff members had seen me, and that every time I've been seen on campus, I've been reported to campus security. Now, the Uclan campus in Preston is so extensive that I don't believe you can walk around the town centre or many other areas without going on the campus. And I was going about my normal business. But as a person of colour, as you can see, it seems to be drawing attention. Now the fact of the matter was this, that when I represented myself in court last year, I kind of got a liking for the law, and I reapplied to Uclan. I've done a degree there before, and I was given a place on a law degree to start this year. These are the reasons why I was on campus, going about my normal business. You see, I am this Denzel.
We're a family. We gotta stick together, right?
That's right.
But it seems that people at Uclan are trying to make believe that I'm this Denzel. To cut a long story short, what transpired was that after the university learned that I had sent an email to the solicitor of my children regarding family court matters, and also a video that I did in close to Winkley Square in Preston, where I was speaking about me wanting my children back, they have decided that they were going to put me on trial to see if I was a threat to the university. But let's take a look at the person who was spearheading the group of people. There was a Chris Pine, chair of the disciplinary action, a Lisa Brooks, an Adam Parr Evans, Sophie from the Students' Union, an individual called Andrea Birch, I believe, and lastly, an Asian man called Pradeep Passy. Now I make reference to the fact that he was Asian, but let's first listen to what Pradeep has to say.
One was the YouTube clip which was posted online
by ELAVI. And within that clip, he appeared to breach by naming judges that were involved in his case, and also publicly naming his children, which appeared to me to be breaches of those. The second issue was the content of the email that was sent to the former partner solicitor, which also caused me some concern, and kind of raised some questions about potential risk to the former partner, who continues to be a student here at Uclan. And there were some kind of quotes in there, or content within that email, which were, in my opinion, threatening. And
he further goes on to say,
on this occasion, I also had to consider potential risk to other students and indeed other members of staff, and the risk that was posed, and this email and the YouTube clip.
So, because of the video where I mentioned the name of 2 judges and my children's name and an email, they are believing that I am a threat, and they have to find out whether I'm a threat to students. Now, I've stated that I've done a degree there before, got no history of violence, no students were hurt or harmed while I was doing my degree, but these stereotypes persist. When I mentioned that Pradeep was an Asian individual, what you will find in many of the structures, such as universities, police forces, is that they are talking about the lack of black people. Underrepresentation is what they say. Universities and schools say that there's underrepresentation of black people in education and in employment, and that they do everything to make inclusion possible. But you will always find Asian individuals in these positions. And I don't want this to sound like I'm being racist, but I'm going to break down the system for you, if anybody has been key to seeing why and how this happens. Now, one of the ideologies is that Asian people, now this goes back, are more passive. They're not perceived to be as aggressive as us black people. Stereotypes. And I always see this stereotype coming with what India was called in colonial times. India was known as the jewel in the crown, and it had a different representation to the one of the savage in Africa. Interesting. But there is a deeper understanding of why Asian people seem to have more prominent roles in the system that we're in, the matrix that we're in. Now, before I say this and go to why it is, let's look at some of the stats and figures for Uclan University in terms of staff. And let's look at how the representation breaks down. In 2016, there was 179 Asian members of staff. In the same year, 46 black members and 2,520 white members of staff. In 2017, the Asian number of staff went up by 1 member to 180. The black members of staff went up to 52, going up by 6 members. And the white members of staff went up by 33 members to 2,553 white members of staff. In 2008, we also have a jump where the Asian members of staff went up by 9 individuals to 189. The black members of staff went up by 5 to 57 members of staff. And the white members of staff shot up by 140 members to 2,690 members of staff. What we will note here is that although Uclan openly states that black people are underrepresented, there has been no effort to recruit from the student population qualified staff of black individuals to fill spaces. In fact, what we found is that the white members of staff are still increasing way above the level of rate of the Asian and the black members of staff. In 2019, we find an interesting development in the graph here where it appears that the white members of staff are actually dropped over 2016, 2017 and 2018. And this is a contradiction in the figures I've just given you. So why in 2019 were they trying to make it appear as if the numbers of white staff members had fallen, when in fact they'd raised at a rate far outdoing any other members of society, the local society? Why is that? I wonder. Well, I spoke about the reasons why Asian staff members are looked at as more able to incorporate into the system. Is there any other reasons historically? Well, let's go back to India, because what is it about the psychology of white people in systems like education, police force and so forth, and what is it about Asian people that seem to work quite well together? What is it? Let's look at this little footage.
The caste system is a traditional form of stratification from Hinduism that classifies people into 4 different groups. The caste one is born into will determine his or her social status, job, diet, and behavior. This 3,000-year-old system still to this day has a significant impact on Indian society. The socio-historical origin of the caste system dates back to the year 1500 BC, when the Aryans from Central Asia invaded India, creating the system as a means to control the local Indian population. Throughout the years, the system was transformed by the ruling elites and became part of Hinduism, the largest religion in India. In the 19th century, during the colonial period, the British saw the caste system as a way to maintain social stability and used it to their advantage. The Brits separated the peoples from different castes and targeted those from the lowest castes.
It also means that certain people are born to a certain level of life and certain people are born to another level of life, and that is justified. And that means
the caste system.
The caste system, and that means over 1/3 of India's population of 1 billion are regarded as communicable social diseases, such that if I was a low caste person and my shadow felt on you, you would have to go and ritually wash yourself in order to continue to take part in society.
One cannot deny the existence and indeed the horrific history of caste discrimination. Dalits or untouchables in particular have suffered terribly. They have been denied basic human rights.
Aryan caste system. Note the word. The Aryan caste system was a system going back thousands upon thousands of years in India, embedded into the culture. But the caste system, you say, isn't that based on social structures and not ideas of race? Remember the word Aryan. And I'm going to show you 2 people that you may not think have something in common. Here, Mr. Hitler. The one in our system who is looked at as the devil, the worst individual that has ever lived. He would be in the running for that. And on this side, Gandhi, one of the greatest individuals who ever lived. Saintly, Mahatma, they called him, the Great One. Do these people have anything in common? Well, let's go deeper. And let's look at this little short film.
He's an international peace icon who helped India gain independence. And his ideology of non-violent resistance continues to inspire leaders and revolutionaries. But his legacy is changing in some parts of the world. This statue was removed from a university in Ghana after students rallied against it, or because they say that Mahatma Gandhi was racist. A statue of the leader was also protested in California, and another one was vandalized in South Africa. But was Gandhi racist? Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi was born in India, trained as a lawyer in England, and worked in South Africa for more than 20 years. He experienced his first act of racial discrimination when he was thrown off a first-class cabin of a train in South Africa, despite having a ticket. It prompted him to mobilize the community to march, boycott, and fast. He developed satyagraha, a non-violent resistance, and was imprisoned 5 times in South Africa. When he returned to India in 1915, he became a leader in the Indian National Congress and fought for independence against British rule. One of his boldest acts of civil disobedience was leading the Salt March to protest the British government's monopoly on salt. In 1947, India gained independence from Britain. 6 months later, Gandhi was assassinated by a Hindu extremist. Even after his death, he continues to inspire civil rights movements across the world. But it was Gandhi's early writings in South Africa that have cast a shadow on his legacy. During a speech in Mumbai in 1896, he spoke of the savage half-heathen natives who spend their lives in indolence and nakedness. He used the derogatory slur for blacks in South Africa, Kafir, liberally in his writings. Some accuse Gandhi of believing in the superiority of the Aryan race, thinking that blacks were inferior to whites and Indians. In fact, one of the first legal battles Gandhi fought for in South Africa was to demand a separate entrance for Indians at post offices, so they were not classed with blacks. So why do many see Gandhi as an icon of justice? Critics of Gandhi say that his writings from his stay in South Africa contrast with what he wrote in his autobiography later on in life. He effectively tidied up some of his earlier views. But others counter this portrayal of Gandhi. They say that his prejudice was born out of a colonial context and reinforced by the fact that at this stage he had had little contact with Africans.
The icon, Gandhi, and what I'm trying to show here is that his actual ideology was tied to an Aryan and colonial view of race, and that the caste system itself is a caste system based on race. Let's go and listen to some more of the statements that Gandhi used in his writings and what he would call people of my colour. the icon of peace and justice likened us to animals, savages, too many of us, people that wouldn't work, low. You know, some things where he talked about the British rulers look at us, referring to himself, as the same as them. So what was Gandhi really fighting for? Was he fighting for justice, or was he fighting for the caste system to be enforced legally so that we as black people would be at the bottom of that caste system? He would be somewhere near the rulers, the white people at the top. Good question. Now, I mentioned Hitler before, and what's very interesting is people know that the swastika, the symbol that we look at as evil these days, actually came from Hindu religions, and that it is believed that it was a peaceful symbol which Hitler turned around and made it an evil symbol. Is that the case? Or do these two symbols, which are basically the same symbol, have some kind of historical identity? Let's have a look.
Swastika goes back a long way, certainly before it became this symbol of evil. In the Chinese Book of Silk, you see comets, and some of them are spinning in such a way that you actually get the swastika in the sky, and ancient peoples will have seen this, and so it became a sign of something. And in the Indian culture, it certainly became a sign of good luck and hope. The Nazis then turned that around. I mean, they physically reversed the swastika, and of course then it became a symbol of evil. And that's really problematic, because in our culture it's evil, but you see it over in Asia and of course it's not. And should it be banned here? That's contextual. Obviously it shouldn't be banned in a particular sort of temple, but you might, if you choose, want to ban it, let's say, at a political rally. What happened under the swastika will become ancient history, and only at that point will it fade and its original meaning might rise. In the context of the swastika and a flag, I think in the European context we are decades, who knows, centuries away from it being shown without that connotation. In other parts of the world, of course, it remains what it was, a peaceful symbol.
This individual speaks about it being a peaceful symbol and it being problematic that the West has taken it to mean something evil, but in these other cultures it's still something peaceful. But he doesn't mention the Aryan origins. Well, we've already seen that Hitler and Gandhi had a kind of ideology that was same, birthed from the same Aryan view. And we've already seen that the swastika is basically the same. But in South Asia, now, there's a kind of rise in the deification of one of these figures. And the symbolism also. Is it Gandhi? Or is it Hitler? Let's see.
I think it is because of lack of historical fact or historical education, because Holocaust in Nazi Germany are not taught in high school in depth. So they are mentioned passum, but not in details. Hitler in Thailand and also in Asia, Hitler has been associated with a dictator in Asia or in Asian culture. A dictator is someone who can modernize the state. So a dictator has been applauded by Asian culture, I think. So therefore, the name Hitler is not associated with devil in Thailand.
The individual in this segment claims that the reason why Hitler and the swastika are now viewed in a positive light in this area of Asia is because they've not been taught about the Holocaust. But the fact remains that it is the strength of Hitler that they're worshipping, and also the ideology that he pushed forward to do with superiority and racial purity and the Aryan system, which could they not have an affinity with, knowing that the Aryan system has gone back within their psychology for thousands upon thousands of years. Now, saying all this doesn't exactly explain why Uclan refused to see me as this.
We're a family. We gotta stick together, right?
That's right.
But want to see me as this, Denzel. Now, in the segment that we listened to, Pradeep mentioned an email and mentioned threats. He wanted to see if it was threatening. Well, what I said in the email was that I was at war, I was fighting for my children. And I don't think I was mentioning war in terms of having real guns and, you know, circling the Uclan with helicopters. The war that I'm fighting is one for my children. And I made certain references about the mother of my children and what she had done in terms of false allegations of rape to stop me seeing my children. Now, the university seemed to be incapable of understanding this. They also seem to be incapable of taking on board the allegations made by privileged people like Dr. Ridley that can affect my life, which were based in racial stereotypes. And I've gone through this little passage of time to show you where these ideas may come from. I want to go to one other individual who worked a lot in race. I want to go to another individual just to highlight something I think within terms of the educational system before I go a little bit into the allegations that are being brought against me.
You say that all whites are racist. Can you expound on that, please?
Any white person who was born, raised, and schooled in the United States of America, if you aren't a racist, you're a miracle. Either that or you decided to educate yourself. Because education in this country is about white is right, brown's all right, black's got to stand back. Yellow's mellow, but whites, we educate in a way that says that white males have done all the adventures, have made all the adventures, have done all the discovering, have made all, everything that is good and has been accomplished according to social studies, which is actually anti-social studies, by white males. It's a lie. But we do that in order to maintain the myth of white superiority. The myth of race has to be maintained at all costs in this country. Because if white people have to give up the color of their skin as being something that makes them perfect, what do they have left? If we start teaching the truth about history, if we start teaching about Nile Valley contributions to civilization, it will totally change the way we conduct ourselves in the classroom. It will have to. Columbus didn't discover America. You can't discover a place where people are already living. But we celebrate that every October. It's a lie. We need to get over, we need to stop telling the myths and start telling the truth.
So when you tell people that they're racist, and it must have some kind of effect, because most people will say, I'm not racist.
I'm not a racist. Why, some of my best friends are black.
Right.
Yeah, and then you say, name one. Or this one, I don't see color. And when some woman says to me, I don't see color, I say, I knew that. If you saw color, you wouldn't dye your hair that way. Or I say, if you saw color, you wouldn't wear that shirt with those pants. I believe that you don't see color. It's an attempt to deny skin color. And it's an attempt to deny what's wrong with seeing the color of my skin. Is it all right for you to see me kind of pink? That's okay for me. I don't mind. And I suspect that you don't mind being seen the color you are. You have a right to be what you are. And until people in this country and people in this world get it into their heads that the first modern human beings that evolved on this earth were black women. They evolved in sub-Saharan Africa about 280,000 years ago, and every human being on the face of the earth today has the memory of those black women's genetic structure in their genes. Now, we don't want to admit that, but that's the way it is. And as people moved farther and farther from the equator, their bodies produced less and less melanin, so their hair, their skin, and their eyes got lighter. As they moved into the east, they ate a lot of fish and a lot of vegetables, so their skin took on a different tone.
I'd like to direct you to what Jane Elliott said about the fact that if people haven't educated themselves, then they're going to be racist if they were educated in a system in America like that. Is it any different in this system? It could actually be worse in this system. And that's what we're talking about, the educational system. Now, it's hard for me to make programs like this, videos like this, because a lot of people do not want to address these subjects. But remember, this is ELAVI Truth TV, so I've got to go in on subjects, especially those subjects affecting me. I want to just come to why I was saying in my email, which is one of the things I said. I said that I didn't want, and I would do anything to have the mother of my children and Dr. Ridley not working at Uclan University because of their actions and what they had said to affect me adversely. And after this statement that I showed, where other members of staff are trying to adversely affect me, I feel the same. In addition to this, people have been getting in touch with groups that I'm involved with, denigrating my name and saying that I'm this and I'm that, trying to make me out to be. Now, when I speak of being at war, it's not an aggressive thing. It's a determination that I have. But I want to go back to 2008, where the mother of my children made false allegations stating to the police that I'd broken her arm. Here. Police turned up, and then they found this out. No arm had been broken. Although the informant stated that her arm had been hurt, it was not the case. The mother of my children actually had to sign a document stating that it wasn't the case. On this occasion, she had actually accused me of stealing from her purse as well. She had to write a statement retracting that. Do you think the police at any time charged her for making false allegations? Do you think they charged her in the end when they found out that her false allegations of rape were not true? No, they didn't. That's why she can be in Uclan now, making the similar accusations that are affecting my life. Now, this document is not my document, it's a police document. And if anybody from Uclan wants to check out the other documents that I have proving that she has had a long history of false allegations, feel free to contact me and I'll email them to you. If you would like to go to the police and request my history of violence, feel free. I do not have one. What I'm trying to point out here is that there is certain privileges that people have. Along with the breakdown of racial structures that I showed, whites, Asians, blacks, there is also male and female gender breakdown. And we find that in 2018, there was 1,794 women and 1,355 men. In terms of equality then, the women who work at Uclan have no problem with equality in terms of staffing, do they? Because they far outnumber the men. So this isn't equality, or is it equality to have so many more women than men? Is that equality? Well, you will have to decide, but what I will say is this. The 2010 Equality Act talks about non-discrimination. And the 2010 Equality Act is a long line of legislation that first started with the Race Relations Act. And it tackled the discrimination that black people were facing. So it would seem that today, in 2020, the main beneficiaries from the Equality Act are not white men, but white females. Because as I state, in 2018, there was 1,794 women and 52 black people. Considering that the Race Relations Act went so far in bringing equality into this country, would it seem like there is an inequality going on here? We do know that males, young males, be they white or black, suffer more in education than females. And of those males, we know that black males suffer more in education and excluded more. We have problems with the school to prison pipeline, where there is a out proportion of black males in prison. Can you see the imbalance going on here? Knowing that the very same people who are making accusations, such as Dr. Ridley, are white females. The most privileged, it would seem, within the College of Uclan. Just a thought to leave you with. Now, Uclan like to use images like this on their 2019 Equality Report. A lovely dancing black woman dancing around Uclan campus. I've not seen her recently when I've been walking around Uclan campus dancing in a colourful regalia, and I'm not sure she even works at Uclan. But my question would be this: is this dancing black female adorning the campus one of the 1,794 women working at Uclan? I doubt it. I doubt it. But what is interesting is this, that Uclan are pushing forward their idea of equality based on these kind of images that do not reflect what is really going on in the university. And what is really going on in the university is exclusion, systematic, institutional, structural racism. I'm a threat to no one. But when people decide to want to hinder my life, I will talk about fighting, I will talk about war, and as I state, the people that understand me know why I'm saying this. To end, I was in court the other day to face similar charges about the video, I Want My Children Back, in which I name judges and I speak the names of my children. And they have set the trial for December 2021. Until that time, I've been reluctant to start my Injustice Mondays. But I will be starting my Injustice Mondays very soon, outside the court in Preston, the Crown Court. And I'll have more than a year to build my Injustice Mondays. One man outside the corruption that is the system. And it all ties in. It all ties in because the courts are related to the university, and they're related to the Masonic Centre, and they're related to the police, and they're related to the probation, and they're related to the prison service. It all ties in. The structure that we're in, the matrix that we're in. I'm just opening up a can of worms. But I say to you, the people of Uclan, if you do not want a person like me to say that you are racist, do not use people like Pradeep to push forward your idea that you are equal, when what you're actually doing is using an Asian person as a box ticking exercise. And that Asian person is using their privileged position to make it look as if there's equality in your university. But I say to you, Pradeep, before you put me on trial, please put the other people on trial in your university that are making false allegations to hinder black men's lives like mine and realise that I am this Denzel.
We're a family. We gotta stick together, right?
That's right.
Not this Denzel.